much, Gopal. So yes, I'm here to introduce myself as a content leader and not as an artist. Mainly because I feel that I have come to this position with a responsibility. And the responsibility is to drive awareness, to give more opportunities to the young writers, to give opportunities to those who want to change domains. So I'm here in this position with a responsibility is what I feel. So let me introduce myself as a content strategist, information architect, and most importantly as a content leader. So I'm the senior manager of the technical writing team at Grey Orange. And very less people know about Grey Orange. Only those who know me personally might be knowing about this company because it's a startup. Now why I'm emphasizing the word startup is because a startup means chaos. The synonym of startup is usually chaos, and there will be a lot of chaos whenever you work in a startup, and through that chaos, you will get unimaginable exposure to things you never thought you will learn. You know, you might have worked like someone like me. I have worked in large organizations for so many years, but the 3 years in my during my tenure at Grey Orange, the learning has been phenomenal. And that's a humbling moment also, that despite having all the years of experience, you know that there is still so much to learn. Ranjini was saying, like, even as a leader, we are constantly learning. And I'm sure Nidhi also will agree that she is so knowledgeable, but still she sees opportunities to learn. So never think that I know everything, because that's where the learning stops, right? So to talk about me, yes, I have about 20-25 years of experience, but most of my experience, or half of my experience, was as a developer, as a business analyst. I've explored all the phases of STLC, you name it, I have done it, except for marketing, sales and marketing, I've done it all. And then it was a very, like I keep on hearing, okay, I'm an accidental tech writer. No, I was a very, like I wanted to get into this field and I was slowly getting into this field. So the transition was very smooth for me. I'm not an accidental tech writer, and that's the reason, I feel I have the responsibility to share my knowledge, and today I am here to share my knowledge. I'm not saying that I am the best or I know everything, but whatever knowledge I have gained, I'm going to share it with you today, and that is around content, reuse, and single sourcing. So I don't think we need this slide. We will start from this slide. So one thing I want to tell you is that there is a reason I'm wearing this white pajama and this white dupatta. Okay, whichever women are here, they will always have a white pajama and white dupatta. She's wearing a white jacket. You know why? Because it will go with everything. We are doing reusing. Okay, think about your mother. She might be, nicely washing all the glass jars and, maybe even painting it. But she will keep on filling different things into those glass jars. What is she doing? She is reusing those glass jars, right? So when we are talking about reuse, it is there in every part of our life. So how can it not be there in our life when we are a tech writer, right? But today I'm going to show you or explain to you that what is single sourcing and what is content reuse, and how all these things fit into a world of Bani. Ranjini had mentioned VUCA world, right? VUCA. Bani is also a similar concept that defines a chaotic environment, and there was no better environment than Grey Orange where I could have adopted myself into that Bani world, because it fits in so beautifully. So let's get started. So are they synonyms? How many of you think that they are synonyms, or used to think they are synonyms? Okay, that's great. All of you know. Okay, one of you lifted your hand. Okay, so one of you thought that they are synonyms. So when we are talking about single sourcing, let us just again get back to our wardrobe, okay? We have a cupboard. In cupboard, I had kept this white pajama and white dupatta, right? And all other dresses are also in the cupboard. So that cupboard is my single source. I am not going to 10 different cupboards and taking out my dresses. But in that cupboard, I have a white dupatta that I can use with different dresses. Now that is reusing. I am reusing that specific thing. So that is the difference, main difference between single sourcing and reusing. Single sourcing is an umbrella term. Please make a note of it. That single sourcing can be done in so many ways and it entails so many methods. It is not a tool. A CMS should have ability to do single sourcing, ability to do content reuse. When I was evaluating CMS tools for the startups I have worked for, it was a deliberate move from the larger organization into startups so that I can explore more. And this was one area where I have rejected tools, CMS tools, because they were not CMS. They claimed to be authoring tools, but they did not give me content reuse capabilities, right, or single sourcing capabilities. So this is one of the most important things that we all should know, that what is single sourcing. One of the way of single sourcing is content reuse. And in content reuse, it can again be done in multiple ways. One of them is by using variables. So all of you know what is variable, but some of you might not know what is a variable, or some of you might not have used variables. Now let me tell you that when we write a document, if we are not using variables, later on when that one document becomes 1,000 documents and you need to make a change to the name of a product, it is going to be a nightmare. I don't know if any one of you have faced it in your work life, but yes, it is an uphill task if you have not used variables. And another thing of using variable is that if I am creating a variable for, say, apple, and I have another usage that is the plural form of apples, you need two variables. So my friends, if you have made a variable for one form, doesn't mean that will be applicable for the other form also, that manually you have to type the S, right? So the next is snippets. Snippets is one of the most useful and most crucial feature that you will use for content reuse. So small portion of the topic needs to be created in multiple documents. You are not going to write them again and again in 100 documents. You are going to identify, okay, this is a concept, I'm going to writing the definition, I'm going to make it into a snippet so that that same definition can be used in another document, it can be used in a pop-up, it can be used in a DAP. DAP is the digital adoption platform. It can be used even in my training material. So it is very important when you are doing content reuse that you have at least these two to make use of. Now the other forms of single sourcing can be publication formats. So I have a document, but this is a real case scenario I'm saying. So in grey orange we cater to warehouses. We are into robots and AI software that drives the robots. But the users, the end users are barely educated warehouse workers. So that is where the challenge of a tech writer is, that you are actually writing about a very, very complex technology, but who is your end user? Somebody who is barely educated. So imagine the amount of simplicity you have to bring into your document, right? So why I am mentioning it here? It is because these warehouse workers, when they are standing in front of a rack in a warehouse, so friends, the size of a warehouse is like, can be of 2-3 football fields, okay? It is that huge. So when a warehouse worker is standing in front of a rack, that person does not have access to a laptop or any other digital device. All he can hold in his hand or her hand is paper. So when I'm trying to write a document, I need to keep in mind that particular audience also, who will be reading my document in form of a printed format. So when I am doing single sourcing, I do not have to write separately. I will write it once and I will publish that content in whichever way I want, online or PDF or even SCORM. So what is a SCORM file? One that you can use in LMS. That is your training platform. Then we have conditional content. So in conditional content, the thing is that suppose I want to write a particular piece of information for customer A. So I have written a document which is common for all the customers, but some customers have a few things different here and there. I am not going to create 5 different documents. I will use conditional content. So when I am writing for a small portion of the document for a specific customer, I will make sure I put the condition it is meant for customer A. The next piece of portion will be meant for customer B. So when customer A is looking at the document, they will not be able to see what the other customers are reading, right? That is conditional content. And see, conditional content can be applied not only to text, you can even apply to tables, you can apply to images, and same for all the reusability. So don't think it is only for text. Then we have quick part. This is very specific to the tool we use, which is Click Help. So when we design quick part, what we can do is that we can create small macros that can be reused by all the writers. So either I will create a macro or somebody else in the team will create a macro and everybody else will use it. For example, Click Help does not have an inbuilt accordion tool. So we coded it and all of us use that. So that is also. And then we have topic reuse. Now you might think that, okay, what is the difference between topic reuse and content reuse? Now, Click Help gives us this provision that suppose one document is there in one particular project, that same content needs to be there in another project. So we do not have to copy paste. We can simply reuse that entire topic in another project with a new link and new ID in that project, but still it will be linking to the original topic. So any change in the original topic will get reflected. So these two, last two, is something very specific to Click Help. So I wanted this session to be very, very generic and not about Click Help. So that's one of the reasons that I'm not demoing anything on the Click Help tool, but I am trying to make this session in a way that you can use it, use these concepts in whichever tool you are using. Now the question why? Why at the end of the day, you know, as a tech writer, if you do not have answer to the question why are you writing a document? And if you are writing a document, what is the purpose of the document? If you, as a tech writer, you are not curious about the question why, then I will recommend that you read the book by Simon Sinek called Why. Why is one of the most important question, my dear friends, that drives motivation. If I did not, for example, coming here, right? If I did not have answer to the question why I am coming here, what is the purpose of my traveling 20 kilometers and coming here, I will not have the motivation to wake up 6 o'clock in the morning and coming here, right? So even as a writer, every time you write a document, please drive the answer why to the question why. Now, why we need content reuse? It is so that we can adapt to the Bani world. So I was just saying about VUCA. So another concept is Bani, where B stands for brittle. So is it a biscuit that it will break? No. It is that when your document, you are putting all your effort in your documentation, but the technology changes. The document is no longer valid, it is like outdated. So that is the brittle part of documentation. So as technology changes, you have to keep on updating your documentation. Now imagine if you did not reuse the common content, you have to keep on updating so many content manually. That is going to be insane. So that is where, when you are doing documentation, reusing becomes very, very important, because you want to ensure your document is updated in an easy way and in an effective way. Next is A, which stands for anxious. Nowadays, users are very anxious. Even we are very, very anxious people. When we, for example, I will just say that when a user is looking at a document and is saying, getting to see 10 or 15 different steps to do, there will be an anxiety. There will be a conscious or unconscious anxiety that, okay, I am going to spend half an hour and do all these steps. Will I get the required result? So that we have to also cater to that anxiety of the user and ensure that our documentation has the correct information. And again, there reusability becomes very, very important, so that you are putting the correct information in all the documents. Next is non-linear. Information must be available in various formats. Nowadays, we have so many devices, so many ways to access information, and whatever documentation you are publishing must be available in all formats, right? And then we have incomprehensible. So as I mentioned, our technology is around robots, about artificial intelligence, and we have combination of software and hardware. So how can a normal warehouse operator who is barely educated, understand all this technology? That is where the incomprehensibility comes into picture. So when we are talking about AI, how much of the layman understands AI, right? So the onus is on us, on the tech writers, that how well we can simplify the complexities and present it to a person who can, derive the usability of that information. Now let us understand that what we are reusing, right? So why I have shown Lego blocks here is because it is one of my favorite games. More than my daughter, I have played with her Lego blocks. I just love it. Mainly because the Lego, first of all, they are very colorful. So, I just love that. And second of all, they are all in small pieces. And you don't have, imagination is your only limit. You can assemble them in any format you want and you have a structure for yourself, right? So, when we are talking about content reuse, we should always think of the granularity of the content. Okay, so there is this term that software developers use a lot, and that is called monolith structure. Monolith structure means one solid structure, one document that you have written maybe in Word file and that spans across 600, 700 pages. Okay, or in a notepad you have written, it is like very, very long, the person has to keep on scrolling. So, how do we do the entire breaking down of information? So, I always see it like this, as a content strategist, right? Where the moment you see a big block of information, just as a content strategist, I'll just stick in a dynamite and let it explode. And then I will work on the small pieces. I don't want such a big structure. So the first layer is the base layer, which is your unit of information. So when you are writing documentation, the smallest bit of information forms the base layer, right? So remember, friends, that this is more about a thought process. When you are writing a document, you have to think, okay, the way I am writing it, can this part be reused? And that becomes your tiniest unit of information. Some of the examples I have already mentioned there: definitions, short descriptions, procedural steps, warnings. The second layer is a combination of the base layer. So when you are writing installation instructions, troubleshooting steps, you can stitch up, that is put together the base layer and form your second layer. And then comes the third layer where larger chunks of content is formed. Say, for example, you have created a chapter in which you have 3 H3 headings. And those H3 headings have come from your base layer and second layer. And finally, top layer. I heard somebody say, I forgot who has mentioned that the entire content strategy is actually meant for the writers. He's showing me 10 minutes. Okay. So the actual content strategy is meant for the writers. The user only gets to see our top layer. Okay. Now, all of you, I'm putting it out to all of you, right? Whoever has mentioned on LinkedIn or in their resume that he or she is a content strategist, please ensure that you understand the role of a content strategist, and that as a content strategist, you know how to break down information to its granularity and also how to repurpose information. So that is the photo of a quilt. So documentation should be like a quilt. We are stitching it up in such a beautiful way that all the customer gets to see is a nice, warm, fuzzy quilt that keeps them warm, right? So your documentation, end documentation, is always this beautiful piece of information that is so easy to read and so nice to go through for the end user. So that is how we should always think about content strategy. Now coming back to some real use case scenarios. So at Grey Orange, what we have is obviously multiple customers, each customer with multiple global locations. I'll tell you why I'm giving these details. Then we deal with both hardware and software products, multiple hardware products. So when I'm talking about hardware products, it is not only boards, it's also the racks that we give to it's also the conveyor belts. It's also so many other things that come into the hardware products. Each hardware has multiple variants, each software has multiple versions, and not all customers are on the same version. Each customer sold a solution. Solution is a permutation combination of everything that I mentioned before. One customer cannot have access to the information that we are giving to another customer. Every customer must have training that is specific to them. Okay. So what we did is that our doc portal, we split into employee portal and customer portal. And every time a customer A logs into our portal, that customer A will get to see the publication A. If customer B logs in, they will get to see the publication B. So if we had not done content reuse, imagine that for so many customers, we would have to build the portal manually, one by one, which would have been such a pain. Instead of that, what we did is we created our repositories. So this is, my friends, our customer portal looks like, and the entire thing was done using ChatGPT. So I used ChatGPT. I learned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And I built the portal right from scratch. And this is how our employee portal looks like. Employee portal has more information because everything that we document is visible to the employee. How did we do this? So we have a repository for hardware documentation. We have a repository for software documentation. We have a publication for employees. And we have publication for each customer. Now what happens is that every employee gets to see everything, but customer A gets to see only what is relevant to customer A, and customer B gets to see what is relevant to the customer B, and the same structure we do for the software documentation also. And as if the complexities were not enough, we have nothing, no part of our documentation is public. So everything is behind a SSO. So whatever you are seeing on the screen, everything is controlled by a SSO login, right? So all these complex structures would have been a nightmare if I had not implemented content reuse, if I had not implemented single sourcing. That's it from my end, friends. Please go ahead and